Welcome to Elevate Learn. Today we're diving into Framer Motion, one of the most powerful animation libraries in the React ecosystem. Whether you're building micro-interactions, page transitions, or complex gesture-driven animations, Framer Motion makes it incredibly simple. This library is used by top companies worldwide to create that polished, professional feel that sets their apps apart. By the end of this video, you'll be able to create smooth animations that respond to user interaction and bring your React applications to life. Here's the roadmap for our journey today. We'll start with getting Framer Motion installed and configured in your React project. Then we'll build up from simple motion components to more advanced patterns using variants. You'll learn how to make animations respond to user gestures like clicks and mouse movement. We'll explore staggering and orchestration for creating elegant sequenced animations. Throughout, we'll emphasize performance and real-world best practices. Finally, we'll see these concepts in action with practical examples you can use immediately in your projects. Framer Motion is built on a simple principle. You describe what state you want your component to be in, and the library handles the animation from the current state to that target state. The motion component is a wrapper that enables animations on any HTML element. You define three key props: initial for where it starts, animate for where it ends, and transition for how it gets there. Unlike manual CSS animations, Framer Motion calculates the best approach, using GPU acceleration when possible for smooth 60 frames per second performance. This declarative approach means you write less code and get better results with less effort. Variants are a game changer for animation organization. Instead of cluttering your component with animation props, you define variants as separate objects that describe complete animation states. When you use variants, child components automatically inherit the parent's animation state, making orchestration seamless. You can create dynamic variants that compute values on the fly based on component props, giving you incredible flexibility. This pattern is especially powerful in larger applications where animation consistency across components matters. Once you start using variants, you'll wonder how you ever managed animations without them. What makes Framer Motion special is how seamlessly it handles user interaction. The while hover prop lets you animate elements when users hover over them, perfect for buttons and interactive cards. While tap triggers during mouse press or touch, giving immediate visual feedback. While in view is perfect for scroll-triggered animations that feel magical. The drag prop enables full drag-and-drop functionality with physics simulation. You can constrain drag movement, add momentum, and even add elasticity for that polished, app-like feel. These gesture controls work seamlessly on both desktop and mobile, giving you truly responsive interactive experiences. As you advance with Framer Motion, you'll unlock powerful patterns for complex animations. Staggering is where you automatically delay children animations relative to their parent, creating beautiful cascading effects without writing individual delays. Animate Presence handles the tricky problem of animating components when they're added or removed from the DOM, critical for modals, notifications, and lists. The Layout ID prop is pure magic. It animates smooth transitions when elements change position or size, perfect for modal opens or expanding cards. Use Animation Controls gives you JavaScript-level control for scenarios where you need to trigger animations programmatically. And Framer Motion's focus on transform and opacity ensures these animations run at native app speeds. Let's start with the basics. First, install Framer Motion using npm or yarn. Once installed, import the motion component from the Framer Motion package. The motion component works exactly like a regular HTML element, div, span, button, you name it, but it comes with animation superpowers. We define three props. Initial sets where the animation starts from, animate is where it ends up, and transition controls how long it takes. In this example, our heading fades in from invisible and slides up 20 pixels over half a second. This is the foundation for everything more complex we'll build. When you run this code, here's what happens under the hood. Framer Motion calculates the difference between your initial and animate states. It then creates a smooth interpolation between them over the duration you specified. Each frame, it updates the DOM with new values. In this case, opacity goes from completely transparent to fully opaque, while the Y position moves down by exactly 20 pixels. The result on screen is a smooth fade-in combined with a slide-down motion. This all happens at 60 frames per second using GPU acceleration, so it's buttery smooth. The animation plays once when the component mounts. This is perfect for entrance effects or page transitions. Now let's make things interactive. We've defined 3 variants. Rest is the default state, hover is when the user hovers, and tap is when they click. The motion dot button uses these variants with while hover and while tap props. When a user hovers over the button, it scales up by 5%, giving visual feedback that it's interactive. When they press it, it scales down to 95%, creating a satisfying press-down effect. These gestures work perfectly on both desktop and mobile devices. Notice how clean this code is. The animation logic is separated from the JSX, making it reusable and easy to maintain. This is where animation really comes to life. Watch what happens as a user interacts with your button. When they first hover over it, the scale smoothly increases to 1.05, making the button appear to grow slightly. This provides immediate visual feedback that the button is interactive. The moment they press it, the scale drops to 0.95, creating a pressing down effect like they're actually pushing a physical button. All of this happens smoothly, making the interaction feel responsive and natural. When they release, the button returns to its hover state if they're still hovering, or back to rest if they've moved away. This multi-stage interaction pattern is what separates good UIs from great ones. Staggered animations are where Framer Motion really shines. Here we have a list where each item animates in sequence, creating a beautiful flowing effect. The container has its own variants, but the magic happens with stagger children and delay children. Delay children tells the container to wait 200 milliseconds before starting the child animations. Then stagger children adds an additional 100 milliseconds delay between each child. So the first item starts at 200 milliseconds, the second at 300 milliseconds, the third at 400 milliseconds, and so on. Each item fades in and slides from left to right. The result is an elegant cascade effect that feels professional and polished. This pattern works great for lists, grids, and any collection of items. Look at this beautiful cascade effect. The container waits 200 milliseconds, then starts animating the first item. While that first item is still transitioning, the second item begins 100 milliseconds later. Before the second item finishes, the third starts, and so on. The result is a flowing, wave-like animation that captures the viewer's attention and guides their eye down the list. All 4 items are fully animated and visible within about 800 milliseconds total. What's brilliant about this approach is that you didn't have to manually calculate delays for each item or write individual animations. You just set the stagger values once on the parent, and Framer Motion handles all the timing automatically. This scales perfectly whether you have 4 items or 400. This is the real-world modal pattern you'll use constantly in production apps. We use Animate Presence to handle the mounting and unmounting of the modal. When isOpen becomes true, both the backdrop and modal animate in smoothly. The backdrop fades to semi-transparent black, while the modal fades in and scales from 80% to 100%. When the user clicks close, exit animations trigger. The modal scales back down to 80% and fades out, while the backdrop fades to transparent. Critically, the exit animations complete before the components are removed from the DOM. If you remove them immediately, you'd see the animations get cut off. This pattern is production-ready and used in thousands of professional applications. Let me share the mistakes I see developers make with Framer Motion and how to avoid them. First, don't hardcode animations inline, define variants separately. This makes code reusable and maintainable. Second, always define both initial and animate states. Without initial, Framer Motion doesn't know where to start from. Third, always wrap conditional components in Animate Presence. Without it, exit animations won't play and components disappear instantly. Fourth, never animate position properties like left or top. Use transform with X and Y instead. The browser can optimize transforms on the GPU, but repositioning causes reflows. Fifth, define variants outside your component so they don't recreate on every render. Finally, use stagger children instead of manually calculating delays. It's cleaner and more maintainable. Follow these patterns and your animations will look professional. Here's an important quiz question. What does animate presence do? Think about what happens when a component is removed from the DOM. If you just set isOpen to false, the component disappears immediately, no animation. Animate presence prevents this. It detects when a component you've marked for animation is being removed, plays the exit animations you've defined, and only then removes it from the DOM. This is essential for modals, notifications, and any component that appears and disappears. Without animate presence, you lose all your exit animations and the UX feels cheap and unpolished. Why does it matter whether you use transform or position properties? When you animate left or top, the browser has to recalculate the layout of the entire page. This is expensive and can drop your frame rate below 60 frames per second, making animations look janky. Transform properties only affect the visual rendering layer. They don't change the document layout. The browser can optimize these using the GPU, keeping animations buttersmooth. Framer Motion makes this easy by providing X and Y properties that translate to transform under the hood. Always use X and Y for animations, never left and top. Variants are one of the most important patterns in Framer Motion, and here's why. Instead of scattering animation props throughout your JSX, you define variants as separate objects. Each variant is a complete animation state with all the properties it needs. This separation of concerns makes your code cleaner and more maintainable. Variants are reusable. You can use the same variants across multiple components. Even better, variants enable automatic orchestration. When a parent has variants and children have matching variant names, Framer Motion automatically sequences their animations. This is how you create those beautiful cascading effects without manual timing. You've now learned the essentials of Framer Motion. You understand the core concepts: initial, animate, and transition states. You know how variants organize animation code and enable automatic orchestration. You can build interactive animations that respond to user gestures. You can handle component mount and unmount animations with animate presence. You understand why transform properties matter for performance. You can create beautiful staggered animations that guide user attention. Most importantly, you have a solid foundation to build increasingly complex production-quality animations. The next step is practice. Build interactive buttons, animated modals, scrolling list effects. Read the Framer Motion documentation and explore the examples. Join the community and share your creations. Animation is what separates good interfaces from unforgettable ones. Keep learning, keep building, and keep elevating your craft. Thanks for watching Elevate Learn.